Please, can we remain standing for the national anthem, and thereafter we'll take the national pledge. Please, let's take the national pledge. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity, and uphold her honor and glory. So help me God. Please, you may kindly be seated, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. For a lot of you, you might be wondering why we're taking the national pledge now. Let me just give you, a tip. Just a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, thereabout, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, directed that during all public and official engagements, after the national anthem, that would take the national pledge. It is very imperative for us as Nigerians that we must respect and promote our nation's ideals, and it begins with absolute respect for all our national symbols. Of course, all our national symbols include the national flag, the green, white, green, the coat of arms, the national anthem, and the national pledge. And I think I would also put the currency, the national currency. So thank you very much. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, represented here by the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Your Excellencies, governors here present, let me welcome very specially the members of the Federal Executive Council, that is the ministers, all the ministers that are here. I welcome you specially. Members of the National Assembly, distinguished senators, and honorable members here present, I heartily welcome you. Let me also welcome the chairman of the Board of the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, MOFI, Dr. Samsudeen Usman, CON, OFR, and other board members of MOFI that are here present. I'd like to respectfully welcome the Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, Dr. Armstrong Umetakan. Let me also gladly welcome all the CEOs, the Director Generals, MDs of government agencies and departments here present. You're welcome. Let me also welcome the Chairman of Hess Holdings, Mr. Tony Elumelu, CFR. Mr. Dag Detter, our guest speaker, you're welcome. All the CEOs of companies in organized private sector, development partners, heads of civil society organizations, invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure that I welcome all of you on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, MOFI, to the maiden Public Wealth Management Conference. I thought I would hear a round of applause for that. And you will know why in the course of this event. With the theme, Championing Nigeria's Economic Prosperity, of course organized by the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, MOFI, who has just set for itself a lofty and achievable aspiration of growing his assets under management from the current value of 18 trillion naira to at least 100 trillion naira in the next 10 years. And the 10 years started counting from last year, 2023, so it has just 9 years to go, till 2033. MOFI as an institution is tasked with thinking about tomorrow today, ensuring that every asset serves the greater economic good for the country. And today, as we stand at a critical juncture of our economic trajectory, this conference offers the precipice of opportunity for us as Nigerians that will shape the landscape of our nation for generations to come. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we gather here today not to merely discuss, and I would like us to reflect on that we are not just in the room to do another talk shop, but to forge a path towards sustainable prosperity, leveraging our collective wisdom, innovation, and unwavering commitment to make this country an economic powerhouse and superpower by growing our GDP from the current $450 billion. One would ask, what is MOFI's strategic role and mandate in getting us there? How do we foster public-private partnership to attract alternative finance for public assets? These questions and more will be answered in this conference today as we engage with the focus championing Nigeria's economic prosperity. My name is Nancy Nnaji. I will not be alone today. This event is supported by the Office of the Special Advisor to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment, John Uwajimogu, who also happens to be my co-anchor. I thought I would hear a round of applause for that. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to kickstart this conference, because we really have got to be very brisk, the Vice President just has limited time to be with us here. So to kickstart this conference with the opening remarks, there's a man that is skilled, a consummate banker, a consummate economist, a central banker, for those of you that don't know too, a technocrat, a public servant, the former Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. Now it is economic planning. Please join us and welcome here Dr. Samsudeen Usman, CON OFR, Chairman, Board of Directors of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, and the Finance Chair. Please make your applause louder.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, represented by the Vice President, Your Excellency, the Governor of Cross River State, and other governors represented here, distinguished senators and members of the National Assembly here present, honorable ministers, but of course recognizing our minister, Honorable Minister of Finance and CME, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and pleasure to address you as the chairman of the board of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, to this auspicious Public Wealth Management Conference. On behalf of the board and management of MOFI, I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you present today. This conference marks a significant milestone in Nigeria's journey towards economic prosperity. We are gathered here today with a shared commitment to harnessing the tremendous potential of our public wealth and optimizing its value for the benefit of our nation and its people. The theme of this conference, Championing Nigeria's Economic Prosperity, resonates deeply with our vision for a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria. It is a call to action for all stakeholders to come together, collaborate, and explore innovative strategies that will unlock the full potentials of our public assets. We are starting a journey that other nations such as Singapore, Sweden, and more recently Saudi Arabia have undertaken before. We will blend the lessons learned from such countries' experiences with the unique circumstances of Nigeria. I extend a special welcome to our guest speaker, Mr. Dag Detta, who will share with us his experience in managing Sweden's National Wealth Fund expertly. A British gentleman with whom I served on the board of Citibank Nigeria, Mr. David Walker, when he heard of my appointment as the chairman of MOFI early last year, gave me a present which he said should assist me greatly. And the present he gave me was a book by Mr. Dag Detta about managing national wealth, the book that became a bestseller. I gave a copy to the management of MOFI, and it shows their initiative that they were able to bring Mr. Detta here to Nigeria and to the conference. I also like to thank our other guest speakers for coming and for your participation. We are committed to working collaboratively with all stakeholders to achieve our objectives. I'm proud to say that since the appointment of the previous board about a year ago, we have had 2 board retreats and 6 board meetings. We have worked assiduously to review the MOFI 10-year strategic plan drawn up by consultants and agreed on our vision, mission, and strategic direction. In a first 90-day and subsequently a 60-day plan, we have addressed all the requirements for a smooth takeoff. From the 10-year plan, we have derived a 1-year plan that defines the quick wins and must-dos. We have, in line with Mr. President's emphasis on delivering our results, identified a number of key deliverables and set specific key performance indicators to track and report our performance. We have a competent management team to drive the process. I'm sure in his presentation, the Managing Director will give more details of this. Realizing the significance of the moment and the heavy duty and responsibility we have been entrusted with, we have embarked on a transformative journey to ensure that our public assets are managed strategically and with the utmost efficiency. Through transparency, accountability, and sound governance practices, we aim to maximize returns, attract investment, and drive sustainable economic growth for Nigeria. We are tired of hearing the narrative that Nigeria has failed to realize its potentials in spite of being blessed with abundant natural resources. We are tired of hearing that, and we intend to make a difference. Inefficiencies, underperformance, and a lack of transparency have hampered our progress as a country. As the board and management of MOFI, we want to be part of the paradigm shift. Through MOFI, we are embracing a new era of professionalized state ownership, focused on maximizing returns, unlocking untapped potentials, and fostering strategic partnerships. This conference brings together a diverse group of stakeholders, leading experts, private sector investors, development partners, and members of the public to engage in an open and constructive dialogue. By sharing knowledge, experience, and innovative solutions, we can chart a new course for the future. The success of the conference lies in your active participation. Therefore, I encourage you all to engage fully, share your perspectives, and contribute to shaping the future of public wealth management in Nigeria. As I round up, I would like to express my deep gratitude to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, represented by the Vice President, for his visionary leadership and unwavering commitment to the economic development of our country. His presence here today, through the Vice President, is a testament to the significance of this conference and the importance he places on optimizing our public wealth. Mr. President, Nigerians elected you. They entrusted their lives and wealth to you in your hands. You, through the Honorable Minister of Finance, entrusted the assets to us as MOFI, board and management. Therefore, trust is the critical factor in the equation. The Nigerian public trusted you and entrusted you with their lives and their wealth. You trusted us and entrusted that management of that wealth to us. If I put it in corporate lingo, you, Mr. President, are the custodian, while we, MOFI, are the trustees. The owners and shareholders are the 230 plus million Nigerians, and it is them that we are representing. We will not betray that trust, Mr. President, I assure you. We will be professional, we will be open, we will be transparent, we will be accountable, and we will do it with integrity. At the last board meeting, we actually, all the members of the management and the board, signed 2 documents which we have imposed on ourselves. The first is a special code of conduct document which we've all signed, saying that we will not allow our personal interests or those of our immediate families and friends to interfere with the job that we are doing. The second is a conflict of interest policy, which will identify real and potential conflicts of interest in our work. And every member has to actually declare if any such conflict arises, and we have a procedure of dealing with that conflict. These 2 pieces of that we have imposed on ourselves are very critical to our work. And it's to ensure Nigerians that we'll do it with the highest standards of corporate governance. And we want to be an example to the institutions that are in our portfolio. So we want to lead by example. So we have to first of all show the way if we are asking other companies that are in our portfolio to behave differently. Once again, I extend our warm welcome to all the delegates, distinguished guests, and partners. Let us seize this opportunity to chart a new course for Nigeria's economic prosperity, leveraging the power of our public wealth. Together, we can build a brighter future for our nation, where every Nigerian citizen thrives and benefits from our collective efforts. I want to end on this note. There are virtually all the companies that are in our portfolio are here. I want to assure you that you should regard us as partners. We are no threat at all to you. We are representing the Nigerian people, the shareholder. So in a way, regard us as partners. We're not taking those assets away from you. You will still be running those assets. The difference is that the shareholder that have been sleeping for how many, 60-something years, has now woken up. MOFI was established in 1959, the Act, 1 year before Nigeria's independence. Unfortunately, for many of those years, and some of us that were ministers of finance, I can see 2 or 3 of us, we are guilty of also really not doing enough regarding MOFI. But that sleeping shareholder has woken up and is going to play a very active role in the management of those assets. So I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, apologies, sir. Good morning to all. It is my profound honor to welcome you to this year's Public Wealth Conference. As the Special Advisor to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment, I see this conference as an important crucible for transformative change in leveraging our public wealth for driving investment mobilization and building industry capacity for all of our citizens. And to discuss how and what MOFI's role is as the key trustee of this public wealth and maximizing it for the greater good of all Nigerians, I would like to invite to the stage the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of MOFI, Dr. Armstrong Takand. Dr. Armstrong.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, ably represented by His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, CFR, His Excellency, the Governor of our lovely Cross River State, our senior brother, our senator and a lawmaker, the Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Bagudu, the Chairman of the Board of MOFI and the former Minister of Finance and Minister of Economic Planning, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, the Group Chairman of Hess Holding, Mr. Tony Elumelu, the Accountant General of the Federation, our good doctor, the one that takes care of all our money issues, the members of the National Assembly that are here, Honorable Kuye, who is the Chairman of the House Committee on Public Assets, a key advocate of our mandate, and all members of that committee, the Chief Executive Officers of government agencies, and Chief Executive Officers of the various private sector entities that are here present, the business leaders in our midst, the Country Director for the World Bank, Dr. Shubham, our guest speaker and the former Minister of Finance, Dr. Segun Aganga, the guest speaker, Dag Detta, and all other protocols duly observed. And I also welcome the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Senator Kiari, who has just joined us, Food and Food Security. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here this morning. Let me start by saying that we are not unmindful of the challenges that our nation is going through at the moment. We are conscious of the challenges with our macroeconomic climate. We are conscious about the shortage of food. We are conscious of the turbulent times we find ourselves with respect to our exchange rate, and many other issues we're facing as a nation. We're very mindful of that. But I would like to take you back memory lane, that our forefathers had foresight about the fact that one day we will encounter, or we might encounter, a situation that we're encountering today. And on the basis of that, as the chairman of the board alluded to, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, was established by an act of parliament in 1959. And the sole purpose of that was in recognition of the fact that government's role in policy making should be distinct and clear from its role as a regulator, and should also be distinct and clear from its role as a shareholder in commercial enterprises. MOFI was established to be the shareholder of federal government in commercial enterprises. And its goal was to ensure that we have commercial returns on all business enterprises where federal government has interest in, as well as ensure that every asset that federal government owns delivers value. That is totally distinct from its policy role as well as its regulatory role. It was on the basis of that over 6 decades, the government took strategic positions in establishing commercial enterprises and also acquired shares in different businesses. You can remember Nigerian Airways, Nigerian Shipping Lines, NITEL, NEPA, Ajakuta Steel. So it is not as if the government did not recognize the importance of industrialization and owning commercial enterprises. It was on the basis of that that most of these entities, if not all of them, had MOFI as a shareholder. But needless to say, that MOFI was not an operating entity, did not at any point establish a governance structure that would guide how these businesses were not only established in terms of ensuring that there's a business case established for running the businesses, but how they were governed and continuous monitoring to ensure that they deliver value. None of that happened. We clearly saw the outcome of that. That many of these enterprises underperformed and went into liquidation. And of course, many of them were privatized. But even those that were privatized based on under market value. After the privatization, we still own significant assets in corporate assets, real estates, oil and gas, intangible asset, financial asset, solid mineral asset. Those will always be, because that is the commonwealth of every nation. That is what represents what the nation owns. The administration, the government made a decision that we need to change our strategy of how we do not only acquire public assets, but how we manage those assets. Unfortunately, during that period that we did not manage ours proactively, many nations did what they ought to have done. Singapore is a case in point. Ministry of Finance Incorporated, that was established in 1959, was also established in Singapore at the same time. But the Singaporeans made the conscious decision in 1974 to establish what is now known as Temasek. Temasek started with about $350 million of assets under management in 1974. Today, assets under management for Singapore, that is a city-state, is over $280 million US. If we look at other states and other nations that are equally oil-rich, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, most of them are holding their investment and asset management companies have assets that are worth at least $500 billion. And those assets have become strategic in terms of providing the stability that those nations need. Imagine we had managed our own assets differently. Today, the issue of foreign exchange would have been addressed because our corporate entities would have gotten credit rating that would allow them to have access to finances in the international market at preferential rates. We have seen that. Bank of Industry, a few years ago, was able to raise at least $2 billion due to its high credit rating. And that helps provide some of the FX liquidity that we needed. Imagine if we had many of the other entities that were professionally run and had the same credit rating to access capital at such preferential rates. it would have helped stabilize that. I also want to point out to the fact that there was also recognition that agriculture is the backbone of our economy. Bank of Agriculture was established to provide liquidity for the retail end of agribusiness value chain. Imagine 80% of the farmers that contribute to our food production had access to capital and the extension services that Bank of Agriculture was meant to. That hasn't happened. Bank of Agriculture only has 50 billion naira capitalization for a 200 million naira population. Clearly, you can see that it is not capable of supporting that sector. Nigerian Export-Import Bank, NEXIM, was established to support our export sector to ensure that we have FX liquidity coming in from export proceeds. That entity is less than 50 billion naira in capitalization. For an economy that is the largest economy in Africa, clearly that is not adequate. Today, we do not receive the kind of FX inflows from our export activities that we expect. That explains one of the reasons why we are where we are today. The question is, are we going to continue to lament about our situation? The answer is no. The answer is no. As in addition to all the steps that the current administration is taking to address the challenges that we are facing, from the Ministry of Finance providing a lot of the fiscal buffers and interventions, to the Office of the Vice President coordinating a lot of these activities in agribusiness value chain, as well as that, and all the other MDAs are focused on providing that intervention. What is our role as MOFI? Our role is to ensure that all public assets and resources deliver value for the common good of our people, to support these respective areas. Because if our companies are doing well, we can use those companies as magnets to attract investment. We can use those companies to ensure that we bring in FX liquidity. We can use those companies as instruments for fiscal intervention, as instruments of fiscal intervention in our economy. It is our goal to ensure that that happens. As a result of that, MOFI has been restructured to have a governance structure that has at the helm a governing council. And the chair of that governing council is Mr. President himself. And the alternate chair is the Vice President. His Excellency, the Vice President, is the alternate chair. And the deputy chair of the governing council is the Honorable Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy. Below that is the board of directors of MOFI, made up of 6 non-executive directors and 4 executive directors that is headed by Dr. Shamsuddin Usman. And we're quite glad to have someone of his caliber, his experience, and his character to be at the helm of our board. And of course, at the executive management team, there are 4 of us executive directors that I lead. Now, where are we? We have a 10-year strategic plan that has been designed to shape and direct our steps for the next 10 years. So we're very clear in our mind what our direction of travel is. We have an organization that has professionals that have been hired from different sectors of the economy to join in delivering this, because this is a mandate that requires unique skills, people who are experienced to be part of this journey. We've also put in place structures, governance structures, as the chairman indicated, to ensure that we behave and act and take decisions mindful of the fact that we represent trustees of over 200 million Nigerians. It's a delicate responsibility. Your Excellency, members of this hall, why are we here today? Our assignment requires collaboration, stakeholder engagement, ensure that we're all together on this journey. This forum, as you can see, brings together members of government, the private sector, the National Assembly, civil society, multilateral development banks, because we believe that we cannot do this without this collaborative effort. What are we? We are the shareholder representing federal government's interest in commercial entities. We are not the Ministry of Finance with respect to the fiscal policy. We are not the regulator in terms of making regulations. We are the shareholder representing the commercial interests of government. And as such, we have held to ensure that all the assets that are under our management deliver commercial returns. By so doing, at a time like this, our commercial entities, our portfolio companies should be able to come to the rescue of the government in terms of liquidity. At a time like this, our portfolio companies should have put in place the infrastructure, the facilities to ensure that we address issues on different sides of our economy. Agriculture, for instance, requires massive investment, not from a social perspective, but it's an investment. Our entities, Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industry, Development Bank of Nigeria, need to have the capacity, the expertise to deliver on that promise. We anticipate that once we deliver on our mandate, the Minister of Agriculture can sit down with the Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, Development Bank of Nigeria, and discuss investment opportunities. We already see the intervention from the NSIA in some of those areas. But based on the scale and the magnitude of our economy, we need at least 20 NSIAs to tackle that. We expect to be able to work with all the partners to ensure we support you, we partner with you to build solid entities that can support our economy. We also are to represent the interests, the shareholder interests of federal government and live up to the responsibilities. We want private sector entities to know who to talk to when they are in a joint venture with government in a commercial enterprise. We have to sit together and agree on our direction of travel. I spoke to Mr. Tony Elumelu. I said to him, Mr. Elumelu, you own 60%, your group now owns 60% of Abuja Disco. Government, federal and state, own the remaining 40%. I would like us to sit down as partners and chart the way forward as co-owners of that entity to deliver value. We have seen the value of having a commercial enterprise that prospers. Where you are today is an example of that. This entity was privatized. We still own 11% of it, but you and I know it is a flagship venue for conferences in Nigeria. We get constant dividends. Even I've said to the chairman that I expect that dividend to triple in the next year or two. In the next year or two, and he has agreed with me that we need to work on that. We want to see more of such joint partnerships. What are we not? My chairman alluded to it before. We are not operators of businesses. So those who are operating those businesses, you have nothing to fear about MOFI. What we expect is that we will work together to chart a value creation roadmap. So the value to be created has to be clear to all and sundry at commercial rates. Commercial returns is clear to us. We are not a regulator. We will not regulate your business. There are authorities that have been established to do that. We are also not here to take over any assets, but we want to make sure that there is accountability and transparency in terms of where those assets are, the value of those assets, and that we can use those assets to attract investments. We can use those assets to derive value that will contribute to our development and for the prosperity of the 220 million Nigerians. And that is why we commit to transparency, to transparently commit and communicate to you. Today is a testament to that. We brought all of you in here to tell you who we are, where we're going, and give you an opportunity to ask us questions. We've also invited a guest speaker who is of international repute, who has gone through this before, to share with us the experiences, because we believe in excellence, in understanding and knowledge, scholarship. He will share with us what he has done. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm also pleased to announce that we are going to be launching a 100 billion naira project preparation fund. What is the basis of that? Every time you hear us travel abroad that we're going to seek for investments, investments go to bankable projects. Bankable projects require funding. You cannot create a pipeline of bankable projects without financing that upstream work. And that is the reason why we're financing that upstream work through this fund with all our other partners. And finally, today, we're going to symbolize our partnership model by signing a collaboration agreement between MOFI, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, and the African Development Bank on collaborating for the Strategic Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program. Thank you, African Development Bank, for initiating that program. We believe that MOFI has to demonstrate that government has a commitment to that project through this partnership. It is our view that programs like this will change our narrative. And I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here. As was indicated before, this is not a talk shop. We expect that this will come up with resolutions that will lead to a different outcome. Thank you very much.
Please, another round of applause for the absolutely brilliant Chief Executive Officer of MOFI. From where I was seated, I was thinking he was reading from a speech. I had to look again. Is Doctor doing this thing ex-tempo? Please give him a round of applause. And you can imagine this kind of leader at the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Thank you very much, Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Close to 20 minutes ex-tempo. Nancy, I think I need to do better. Anyway, as we move over to the next item, it is my distinct honor that I bring to you our next speaker. He effortlessly blends the precision of an economist with the strategic acumen of an investment banker. As our esteemed finance minister, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, CME, for those in that space, we normally call him CME. He navigates the complex waters of fiscal policy right now, which we don't envy, but steers the course towards economic recovery and prosperity. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Mr. Wale Edu, Nigeria's Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy. Please make your applause louder, louder, louder as we encourage him on the stage.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning. His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, ably represented by the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, the Chairman, if I may move to him immediately, the Chairman of this occasion, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman. The way life is, this time last year, he was my chairman, and I was on the board of Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Nobody knows tomorrow. His Excellency, the Governor of Cross River State. My colleagues, the Honorable Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Atiku Bagudu, and the Honorable Minister for Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abu Kyari. My predecessors in office, Mr. Shegun Aganga, and of course the other predecessor, I've already introduced him, our chairman of today, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman. May I also recognize the senator who is the chairman of the Finance Committee, Senator Mohammed Sani Musa. At this point, I know His Excellency, the Vice President, has many conflicting engagements. So let me please recognize from the private sector, Mr. Tony Elumelu, Chairman, S Holdings, all protocols duly observed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I'm very happy to be here. I'm proud to be here. I had to be here. I'm very much a part of the new MOFI, and this is a very important public wealth conference. It's a platform that allows, just as Dr. Armstrong Takang has said, it allows the engagement of MOFI with both its stakeholders, the private sector in general, and government. So I would join Dr. Armstrong in welcoming all of you, and I welcome the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Doris Anite, who's a very important part of today's occasion. I'm asked to speak about fiscal policies and public wealth management. And of course, this holds immense significance. It compels us to examine the intricate relationship between the government's financial decisions and the stewardship of our national assets. And I commend MOFI for this topic, and I commend them for this particular occasion. As we try to understand the economic landscape, as was mentioned earlier, yes, the immense potential has been there. It was there at the beginning of MOFI's initial initiation, I may say, in 1959. But the global economic landscape is evolving rapidly, and our reliance on oil has made fiscal stability, fiscal sustainability a continued pursuit. We acknowledge the historical challenges: budget deficits, inefficient public spending, infrastructure gaps, socioeconomic inequalities, and suboptimal national utilization of national assets. The CEO has said all these things before. So let us chart this new course. Under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he is committed to reversing the trajectory of the nation. He is implementing bold fiscal reforms, amongst others, diversifying our revenue base, enhancing transparency and accountability, and prioritizing investments. With the right policies, the collaboration, the cooperation of all, and a forward-looking approach, we can, we will, we are overcoming the current challenges. And even the World Bank asked the other day that, is it that we are turning the corner towards sustainable economic prosperity? Even if it doesn't look so right at this moment, it is my honest belief that we are actually turning that corner. And at the core of this transformation is the MOFI endeavor. We need to be able to budget a substantial revenue line that we can rely on as what MOFI will bring in dividends, in earnings, interest, funding to the national budget. As the asset manager and investor for the government, we have NSIA who play a slightly different role. They basically are an investment arm, while as MOFI is to husband and hold the assets and hold them very efficiently. And I think that during the course of this day, we will hear how MOFI is actually going to do that. Their mandate does extend beyond merely safeguarding the national assets. They have to maximize, as I said earlier, returns on investment and help to drive what we are all after, which is sustainable growth. I'll just highlight some key areas that I'd like MOFI to focus on. you have to enumerate the government's assets. We have to know how much we own, what we own, whose hands it's in, and how you're going to get it on board for yourself. You must optimize asset performance. You must unlock the untapped potential. And I'm sure you heard from the chairman, you've heard from the managing director, and I'm sure that we're in good hands and they will achieve that. There's an alignment with fiscal policy that is important. Public wealth management cannot exist in isolation. MOFI's strategic direction must be closely aligned with the government's broader objectives, fiscal objectives, contribution to diversity, economic growth, and poverty reduction. And of course, as we keep emphasizing, in order to achieve these goals, there is the necessity to collaborate across the whole, if I may say, ecosystem value chain. May I, at this stage, I'm sure I won't get away without commenting on current issues. Armstrong did refer to the issues of the moment. And I'll put it this way. I doubt if there's anybody in this audience who doesn't have experience of the sharply increased food prices. The National Bureau of Statistics have a figure for food as of January last year, and they have a percentage by which they believe food prices have increased over the last year. So I was going to give you an example of the price of Gari, maybe in Ogun State a year ago. But my wife's in the audience. So if I give you the percentage that the National Bureau of Statistics is using, it'll be very bad for me when I get back home, because she will say that, where did they get that figure from? Needless to say, prices have skyrocketed. I think I'm safe leaving it at that. But you know, the reality is that we have engaged in major macroeconomic reforms on the fiscal side, and what I really is not my remit, which is the monetary side. And it has come at a price. And at this particular moment, the cost of food and the availability of food is uppermost. And I would just like to remind us and inform us, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has always said that he would not leave the poor, the vulnerable, the weaker in society behind at times like this. He has previously released strategic grain reserves. He's currently releasing 42,000 metric tons of food grains. He has a plan to release another 60,000 tons of food grains. And this is, you know, in addition to measures to make sure that whatever is in the stores comes out at this important time. And we expect food prices to stabilize and begin to fall in a reasonable period of time. And in the meantime, everything that can be done to put food in the markets, to put food on the tables of people will be done no matter what it takes. All avenues, all ways to help people will be done at this time. And it's just important to remember that we inherited rising prices, but we are committed to breaking this cycle of inflation. And so we're working on, we all know, you're all business people, you're all entrepreneurs, you understand the finance and the economics. We have to stem liquidity. And Central Bank has led the way in pointing out that the ways and means have to be tailored down, they have to be eliminated, and that is what we too agree with. And what we are doing in that direction, there was an inherited amount, 22.7 trillion naira, a backlog. We are auditing it. It's like when I'm ready to pay a loan at the bank, I audit the account. I ask for an audit before finally agreeing the sum to pay. But apart from that, how do you get your ways and means down? You get your revenue up. You get your expenditure down as much as possible. So let me quickly, without boring us and I'll look to His Excellency the Vice President. If he starts going like this, I'll wrap up, but not without saying to you, so where are the revenue sources? Number one is oil revenue. Every day we implore NNPC to increase oil production at these high and elevated prices. At the same time, we implore them to cut their costs. Apart from that, there's non-oil revenue. A lot of it, the companies that have been mentioned here, government-owned enterprises, we can see the amount of room there is there in order to gain greater revenues. On December 30, we were mandated by the National Assembly, by the Senate, when they passed the 2024 budget, go out and bring in government revenue into government coffers, into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. We have used technology. We have used digitization such that we have laid the foundation for a total revamp of federal government revenues. We expect revenue to go up from what is due to the government that is in the hands of other companies, government-owned enterprises. We automatically now take that using digitization. In addition, we are also looking to ensure that revenue that is due to government, even from the corporate sector, from individuals, is efficiently brought in. We have a fiscal policy and tax reform committee that is going to revolutionize and is going to announce it very briefly, very quickly through an emergency intervention bill. It's going to rationalize taxes, take all the nuisance value away from the public sector. It's going to reduce the tax bill you have to a handful of items. All the levies and fees, particularly the ones that are directly controlled by federal, they will all be removed. And what is predicted is virtually, in the next few years, a doubling of tax revenue relative to GDP. So that's on the revenue side. Everything is being done to ensure that there are no leakages of revenue. But then on the expenses side, we are also implementing a robust expenditure framework that removes the leakages, removes the double counting, removes the payments to people who are not due it, whether it is from duty waiver or tax incentives or even expenditure of government on contracts, supplies, etc. So that both on the revenue, on the debt side, there is a wholesale change coming and is being implemented, and the results are already coming through, and that is the way that the government will now get itself wind of the ways and means which have long since plagued. Now, as I said earlier, monetary policy, the instruments of monetary policy, the exchange rate management, the money supply, interest rates are normally and firmly under the purview of the central bank. And I know that they are making every effort in this regard to bring stability to the foreign exchange market. And as they continue to work, beyond CBN's efforts, the federal government also can and is doing all it can to increase the supply of foreign exchange. So, for example, in seeing how central bank had targeted or given an indication of where interest rates, it felt interest rate would go, when it said that it saw average inflation of 21.5% during the coming year. And the Ministry of Finance responded by debt management, issuing treasury bills of various tenors, such that at the end of the day, the interest rate on treasury bills went up above 23%, and that automatically improved the supply of dollars into the Nigerian economy. That is how fiscal and monetary are working together for the good of the country. In addition, you have to clap. Just in addition, to show that there are many ways out of a difficult situation, and that we are getting out of it, and that we have a strategy, not just a reform here, not just a reform there, but a consistent set of actions that are meant to stabilize the economy, bring down inflation, bring down interest rates, and boost investment, both from portfolio investors and from foreign direct investors. So we have in the offing, and there are financiers in this room who know about it, we have an executive order that allows the Ministry of Finance, through the Debt Management Office, to offer dollar-denominated federal government securities. That means that at this time, where we are trying to restore the confidence in the Naira as a store of value, one of the things that is being done as an interim measure is to raise funds in dollars, give people who have dollars, whether they're abroad, wherever they are, whether they're Nigerians living here, whether they're Nigerians living abroad, giving them the option of saving in dollars to the extent that they already have dollar savings. Come and save them with Nigeria. We pledged loyalty to Nigeria. One way of that loyalty is trusting that the government has never defaulted. Why should it default on securities that it offers you just because they're denominated in dollars? So basically, it is a whole of, covering the whole of the field on both the monetary and fiscal side to show that the future is already beginning, because the future is macroeconomic stability, low inflation, investments, adequate supply of foreign exchange. And with these measures, it means it is beginning. May I end by referring once again to the fact that the President is committed to easing as much as possible the pains of this reform process. And his intervention program, yes, it is in agriculture, the Minister of Agriculture is here, and the long term, or even the short term, if you say giving of food is immediate, then the short term is to have a good dry season harvest. Everything is being done to help farmers with that. And to have a good wet season harvest. Once you have enough food, that's it. But apart from that, there is intervention for transport, the CNG buses, and in my role as the coordinator of the economy, I did reach out to the team in charge of bringing in CNG buses, CNG kits for assembly in Nigeria, and conversion kits, tens of thousands of conversion kits, so lower cost fuel can be used for mass transit. I did reach out to them and urge them to do faster. Likewise, my colleague, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, has assured that the grant funding that is available to micro businesses is being rolled out, and they will accelerate that pace of rollout without jeopardizing integrity of the system. Likewise, there is a further commitment to ensure that all those who are manufacturing, who are trying to produce for the domestic market, can get a reasonable rate of interest. The Bank of Industry is in charge of that, and I've urged them to speed up that intervention so that the necessary and unavoidable pains of this macroeconomic reform process, and to keep it on track and bring the rewards faster, then these interventions help ease the situation to a brighter, prosperous future, which Singapore took their opportunity in 1924. Let us take our own opportunity. Thank you.
Please, another round of applause for the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Honorable Minister, out of all what you said, let me just say what appeals to me, that your wife is here in the room, Mrs. Adowa Edu. Thank you for being the voice of many Nigerians that are not with them in the room and be telling them the cost of food and the cost of commodity prices. So thank you very much. Please, a round of applause. And this is also a call to our public official spouses. Please speak on our behalf. Thank you very much. Please, another round of applause for the Honorable Minister. As we move very quickly to the next item, and I want to implore our speakers to be very brisk, quick, 1 minute, 2 minutes with your remarks. This next speaker, it is with great privilege I introduce him for his goodwill message, a tireless advocate and driving force behind the progress of Cross River State, a man that I have called, I've described him as being investment-centric, whether that's my own English, as he hosted the cream la de cream of investment titans in Calabar, Cross River State, in August. He hosted the International Cooperation and Investment Summit that yielded about $2 billion in investment commitment. I thought I would hear a round of applause. You would ask me how. I was there, so I know. So without further ado, kindly welcome His Excellency Senator Basio to the Executive Governor of Cross River State for his 1 minute goodwill message. Your Excellency, sir, please a round of applause.
Good morning, everybody. Your Excellency, Mr. President and CNC, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, here represented by his very able vice, Your Excellency, Vice President Shetima. The honorable ministers, all of the governors who are present here. I think Nancy gave me just 1 minute, and I've done 20 seconds already. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to express the happiness of Cross River State in what I'm seeing here today. I want to thank MOFI for coming alive after so many years. And MOFI did not hide. They did not hide the fact that over the years, they've been quite moribund. Because most of the issues we have today, particularly on the fiscal side, has been the inability of MOFI incorporated companies to do the needful. Nigeria still has productivity at its lowest level. And I believe that in these days and time, which productivity counts in everything, even in agriculture, it is not what it used to be again. Today, the value chains and processing are very, very important. So it is very welcoming news to Nigerians that those companies, those corporate bodies that are going to help in making sure that the vision of renewed hope of Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to come alive are today emboldened to come up with increased capitalization in order to meet up Nigeria's need, particularly food security. It is true that we are passing through a very troubling moment. But for us to move forward, even in the history of any company, there must be a time which we must cross the Rubicon. Those times are very difficult. This is the first time in Nigerian history that we are actually facing our real challenges. And I believe that for whatever darkest moment we are, after that, there will definitely come the light. The proper fiscal policies are being put in place. Yes, times are difficult, we need palliatives. But the moment these issues are addressed and Nigeria is properly structured, I think we are on the path to greater progress. I will not fail to say that the subnationals are doing their best, particularly across River State. We are open to very serious investments. We are building the type of structures that will feed Nigeria. We have more than enough land acreages for wheat, rice, cocoa, name it. We have already started land preparations. And we want to thank MOFI for also wanting to participate in the ESPZ. Because it's very good that when African Development Bank and African Finance Corporation and the African Exim are putting together, the Nigeria comes up with its own share of the muzzle. Because as trustees, this is where it's clear that you are also a party and alive to what is going on. So I want to say that we are open totally to investments. All the corporate bodies that are here, as we finish here, please come to Cross River State. We can feed Nigeria, and the food security and the food shortages we are watching or living with it today will be a thing of the past. The Honorable Minister of Finance, I would not like to leave and planning without commending what you're doing. I believe I really do not envy your job. It is very tough times. It is maddening. But be bold enough to continue what you're doing. I believe that together we'll actually get out of this. I will not also fail in commending our tax and revenue aspects. Our revenue streams have been lying fallow for years. This is the first time that we are looking at things coming together. When I was the chairman, Senate Committee of Finance, and I looked at our budget deficit then, I said, what are we doing? Our budget is almost the size of the police budget of New York. And then I look at the revenue streams, they were all lying fallow. But I'm so happy today that the government has come to the challenge, that things must be done right before we are able to smile. Those companies that are smiling today cried yesterday. We did not cry, but it is our time today. Only that spiraling inflation and other problems are really costing us more than it should have been. But it's always better late than never, and this is time to do it. So I want all Nigerians to come together and know that we have to be our brother's keeper. Whatever aspect of engagement that you are, do your best. If you're in agriculture, do your best. If you're in finance, do your best. The economy has been sabotaged at almost all levels, and nobody can be blamed. I know that most of the time they say it's politicians. No, it's not politicians. Nigerians have caused most of the problems that we go on today. But let us come together again as a people and correct it so that the incoming generations will say that, yes, we had able Nigeria. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Rivers State, Senator Bassi Otu. Your Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima. We've heard how Singapore scaled up its public wealth in building a robust and strong economy. Now we're going to hear from someone who actually led the restructuring and transformation of a top European economy's public wealth management. And this is in the person of our guest speaker, Mr. Dak Detta, who currently is the principal at Detta & Co., which is an advisory firm advising public and private sector clients worldwide by unlocking value from public assets. He was formerly the president of Statron, the Swedish government holding company, and National Wealth Fund, so the Swedish company's version of MOFI. He has worked in over 30 countries, allowing governments to release billions of dollars of unutilized assets. Dag led the comprehensive restructuring of Sweden's 17 billion national portfolio of commercial assets, the first attempt by a European government to systematically address the ownership and management of government enterprises and real estate. He has also served as a non-executive director of listed and private companies. He has been quoted and has been a guest writer on many public publications. Now, Mr. Detter's presentation will be limited to 5 minutes in the first instance to allow for the opening ceremony, of which he will then continue after the opening ceremony. Mr. Detter. A round of applause, please.
Mr. Vice President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here today. I will make a brief summary of the presentation I will do later, and especially directed to the Vice President, but also to everybody else here. To create revenues or yield from public assets is mainly about political will. That's why the presence of the Vice President and all the and actually everybody in the room, because it needs to, with the leadership of the President and the Vice President and all the ministries, we need to mobilize the political will from the whole people, because this will benefit all of the people. You're moving the management and the benefit of these assets to the few, to the many, and that requires enormous political will. The work that I do as a technician is quite, this is done every day in the private sector, so that's not rocket science. The rocket science here is actually done by the politicians. This is the hard work. You could see the political work a little bit like the god Ganesh in India. His job, he is an elephant, and he is supposed to pave the way for you if you ask for his help, so that the roadblocks that you have are eased for you, so that you can have a smooth journey. And the challenge ahead is to create a MOFI which actually has the authority and the independence to act as a commercial vehicle, as if it was a listed company. That is the spirit that we should all try to aim for when doing this journey. And that requires, to make it commercial, it's often that you have to you have to move subsidies that are channeled through companies like electricity and other companies that you may have here channeling, because that confuses the objective for a state company, for a commercial company. So the subsidies has to be moved out and paid for directly to the people that actually need these subsidies. It requires capacity, it requires a digital platform, but we have the World Bank here who has done it. We have done it in Jordan and other countries in the world, so it is possible. And it's also very beneficial, because a lot of people that receive benefits today, or subsidies, are not really in need of it. And by that, you will also reduce the fiscal space needed for subsidies, because it will be more efficiently distributed, and you will reduce the amount quite significantly. And it would also seem like a much more just society. That is the experience from all countries that have done this. Another thing is that there can only be one owner of assets. You have a very important assets in your oil company. And in my family, I don't know, in your families, I'm sure it's different, but in my family, there's only one boss. That's not me. That's my wife. It's the same with commercial assets. There needs to be only one boss. Of the oil company, it should ideally be, as I have learned, under one command, because otherwise there will be confusion again. So what you're aiming for is to have a very sharp entity, MOFI, that will be seen, will not only be, but actually be seen by everybody as truly commercial, very focused, without any trouble on the road. All the logs and everything else we should try, at least. There will be others. There will be plenty, trust me. But we should try to take away the most obvious ones. And this, I believe, with the enormous wealth that you have been endowed, will allow you to have a yield from these assets, which are probably more than 400 once the accounting and the evaluation of the assets, probably 400, maybe more, that should be encompassed by MOFI. If we have at least 10%, we don't have to have 14% like Temasek or the 13 that we managed in Sweden, but that's reasonable. Let's say just 10%. That is very close to what you're today receiving in tax revenues. I know Minister wants to have it higher, and I'm sure you're going to succeed, and I wish you all the best. But still, in these days when we need cash to shore up the currency, that's a good message to give to the investors in your currency and in your bonds. The other one is, of course, that's the fiscal space that is enabled from this. The other one is, of course, the debt sustainability. I know the World Bank and the IMF doesn't count assets in the debt sustainability, but maybe one day we will succeed in convincing the IMF and the World Bank that the balance sheet should be in debt sustainability. It's public net worth that should be counted, not debt over GDP, which is a pretty meaningless measurement. If you look at that way, once you have shown what assets you have, it will be, it will be obvious for the market, for the world, that you are a very wealthy country and you have put in place a governance structure which is MOFI, which has no political encumbrance, but is actually feels and smells like a commercial vehicle and will be able to create this fiscal space for the people. Thank you.
Please, another round of applause for Mr. Detter. This is just an abridged version. After this opening, there will be a fuller version of his presentation. Just before we move into the next item, I would want to specially recognize the distinguished Senator Mohammed Sani Musa, Senate Committee Chairman on Finance. Please, a round of applause for him here. Thank you very much for joining us, as well as distinguished Senator Tokunbo Abiru, CFA, who is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Institutions. Please, a round of applause for him. Our next speaker has been described as a money witch doctor by the Chief Executive Officer of MOFI, Dr. Armstrong Takang. He's a visionary entrepreneur, the Afri-capitalist himself, a philanthropist, and through his philanthropic work, we've seen him empowering over 18,500 entrepreneurs across Africa, that's across 54 African countries. And since inception, his iconic TEF, Tony Elumelu Foundation, has empowered Africans with about $100 million US a fund to mentor and train young Africans. Our next speaker is the founder and chairman of Hess Holdings. He's the chairman of Pan-African Financial Services Group, United Bank for Africa UBA PLC, which operates in about 20 countries across Africa, the UK, France, the UAE, and is the only African bank with a commercial deposit-taking presence in the United States. I thought I would hear a round of applause for that. That's not an easy feat. Please allow me to welcome to the stage a visionary entrepreneur, a visionary leader, Mr. Tony Elumelu, CFR.
I'm told I have 2 minutes, but really, Your Excellency, our Vice President, Dr. Kashim Shettima, all protocols observed, please, so we can move. I actually prepared fairly long remarks, but there's no need for that after listening to all the previous speakers. When I listened to Dr. Armstrong, listened to Dr. Shamsuddin, listened to the Minister of Finance, they've covered everything to speak on. When I heard about this conference, my mind went immediately to Temasek. I've always liked the Temasek model, what they've achieved, and I think that is what MOFI is also aiming to surpass. It's quite interesting to know that Temasek was started in 1974, and our own MOFI was actually, that was established in 1959. And I'm like, wow. They started, we even started before them. But why the difference? And I, from my own private sector experience also, I can tell it's not about dreaming dreams. It's not about getting started. It's about execution, execution, execution. It's about consistency, consistency, consistency. It's about discipline. It's about thinking long term. It's about sound corporate governance practices. And looking at the caliber of leadership as we saw today when Dr. Armstrong was speaking, and knowing Dr. Shamsuddin, who was our boss before, I can tell that it's a matter of time. Plus the support of the president, the vice president, and the coordinating minister of economy. So I want to say to MOFI, let's stay consistent. Let's embrace sound corporate governance practices. Let's have strong commercial mindsets. Let's make sure that we think long term. And indeed, it is time we got our public assets to work for Nigerians. We, through privatization, acquired the Transcorp Hilton Hotel here. And today's market cap of Transcorp Hilton is $1 trillion, over $1 trillion. We acquired a Transcorp Power really. I believe that a proper valuation is placed on that asset or that business, it will not be less than $2 trillion. We took over a distressed bank, Resale Bank, and we're able to take it to where it is today. But why is this so? UBA's market cap is over $1 trillion also. Why is this so? I think because of the leadership, the governance, the long-term focus, the mindset to create value for everyone, all stakeholders. And that is what I see and what I hear today from MOFI. So I want to say congrats to Dr. Armstrong. We are happy to be in partnership with you. I know how passionate you are about AEDC. We want to work with you to make AEDC one of your model institutions. It is possible, it's doable. Our people need improvement in access to electricity. Without access to electricity, we cannot develop. Most of the issues we are discussing today, the industrialization of Nigeria cannot take off if we don't have strong and reliable access to electricity. So we're ready to work with you there. But more importantly, I want to say congrats to you for creating this, and to Chair, you've done it before many times, and we're looking forward to seeing it repeated in this place. And to our coordinating minister, well done. We know you, we respect you, we know what you're capable of doing. and this passion, and I like the humility when you spoke. We are behind you, we support the government. Our Vice President, we are behind you to 101%. And as has been said here, it's difficult times, but let's stay consistent. Let's look out to bring succor and make sure that, again, we communicate the end game. You know, people know the destination and what will happen when we get there. I'm sure they will key into it. So well done to everyone, and congrats, MOFI. Thank you.
Please, another warm round of applause for Mr. Tony Elumelu, CFR. As we proceed, let me quickly invite again to the stage the Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, Dr. Armstrong Umetakang, who would, bring in His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yeah, so we're already upstanding. Yes, as we welcome Doctor to introduce him on stage.
I have the honor to invite the President, who is ably represented by His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are truly honored because he wears two hats. He is the chairman of the NCP that superintends over our privatization and our concession transactions. He is also the alternate chairman of the MOFI Governing Council. And a lot of the discussions that we've had here today and the emphasis on execution, he will have a key role to play. And we're truly delighted that Mr. President asked you to represent him, because you're not just his representative, but you're also the head of this effort. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Please kindly sit down, please. Kindly sit down. Your Excellency, the Governor of Cross River State, Senator Basi Otu, distinguished Senator Mohammed Sani Musa, Senator representing Niger East and Chairman Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Mikhail Tokumbo Abiru, Senator representing Lagos East and Chairman Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and other financial matters. Right Honorable Ademorin Kuye, member representing Shomolu Federal Constituency and Chairman, House Committee on Public Assets. Our host minister, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, and his dear wife, Mrs. Adoa Edun. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Shaib Kyari. The Honorable Minister of Industries and Trade, Dr. Doris Anite Uzoka. The Conference Board and Chairman of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman. And I want to break protocol and recognize my boss, who employed me in the defunct Standard Trust Bank. I have two bosses that I normally share encomiums on wherever I meet them. One is Mr. Jim Obia, the other is Mr. Tony Elumelu. When you are in power, your friends know you. When you are out of power, you know your friends. Mr. Elumelu has the capacity of investing in people's emotional IOUs. When I was out of power, out of the blues, I will see a call from Mr. Tony Elumelu just to exchange pleasantries. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, sir. The Chief Executive Officer of MOFI, Dr. Armstrong Umetakang, Permanent Secretaries, Directors General, and other heads of extra-ministerial agencies and parastatals, members of the diplomatic corps present, our distinguished speakers, former Minister of Finance, Dr. Olusegun Aganga, and Mr. Dak Data, and of course, my very good friend from the African Development Bank, Professor Oyebanji Oyelaran Oyinka, and our friend, a friend of Nigeria, Dr. Chowdhury, the World Bank representative here in Nigeria. Elder statesmen, captains of industry present, and members of the organized private sector, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow Nigerians. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to address you today at this inaugural public wealth management conference hosted by the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, MOFI. The 8-point agenda of this administration kickstarted our journey of renewed hope and clearly articulated the direction of travel of our administration. Since our inauguration, we have made economic revitalization a top priority of the administration. At the core of this is ensuring optimal management of the assets and investments of the federal government towards unlocking their revenue potential. This includes our bold and achievable plan to double the GDP growth rate and significantly increase the GDP base over the next 8 years. 3 key priorities are at the forefront of this agenda. Firstly, we must focus on increasing economic growth by investing in key sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, and technology. Secondly, we must work to create more jobs for our citizens, particularly for our young people and women. And thirdly, we must attract more investment capital to Nigeria to support our growth and development. More recently, the federal government set a goal to raise at least $10 billion in order to increase foreign exchange liquidity, a key ingredient to stabilize the Naira and grow the economy. At the heart of these goals is the imperative to expeditiously mobilize resources. Our low-hanging fruit to achieve this is for us to identify, enumerate, rationalize, and optimize the investment assets of the federal government and ensure that these assets deliver maximum value and returns to our people. As you may be aware, Nigeria's public wealth is vast and diverse, encompassing everything from our infrastructure and real estate assets to our energy and financial assets. These assets are worth trillions of naira and are spread across every corner of our great nation, from the bustling cities to the rural countryside and beyond borders. However, for decades we have not had accurate records, a consolidated register of these assets scattered across hundreds of agencies. This has resulted in gross underutilization, mismanagement, and loss of revenue running into trillions that could have addressed the welfare of Nigerians. The mandate and restructuring of the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated, MOFI, represents a new chapter focused on harnessing our public wealth more strategically for growth and optimization. MOFI's role as custodian and active manager of the investments of the federal government now places it at the epicenter of our economic development agenda. MOFI is charged with bringing expertise, transparency, and accountability to help in the realization of prosperity for our nation. I am confident that public assets will now deliver significantly higher returns through improved corporate governance, innovative private partnerships, and by attracting alternative investment capital. Higher returns from public enterprises will provide crucial funding for education, healthcare, housing, power, roads, and other areas vital to lifting millions out of poverty. We will stimulate the various sectors for sustainable economic development while maximizing job creation for our youth. I must emphasize that this mandate is not just about increasing government revenues. More significantly, the optimization of the performance of public assets will catalyze inclusive and sustainable growth that creates jobs and prosperity. It will boost the funding for critical enablers like power, roads, healthcare, education, and housing, all critical needs of our citizens. The efficient and transparent management of public resources is vital for building an equitable society and lifting millions out of poverty. This conference is therefore a starting point for a results-driven approach that utilizes public assets to drive growth and development for all Nigerians. I am consequently calling on all stakeholders to constructively partner with MOFI on this journey to enhance and optimize the performance of our strategic assets. I urge all MDS, development finance institutions, relevant partners, and key players of the public and private sector to join us in unlocking Nigeria's full potential. Together, we will build a brighter future for our country and create a Nigeria that is prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable, where every Nigerian has the opportunity to thrive and truly benefit from our public wealth for generations to come. I do believe that harnessing our vast assets ultimately puts economic prosperity for all in sight. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as alluded to by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, we are passing through some rough waters. But believe me, where there is a will, there is always a way. Turbulent, the weather might well be, but it won't rain forever. No matter how long the night is, it must give way to the light of the dawn. I want you, fellow Nigerians, to invest your trust in Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He means well for the nation. I have seen his soul. He has a clean heart. And we know the consequences of unveiling a masquerade. There were albatrosses round the Nigerian neck. The albatross of subsidies, where billions of naira, or even trillions of naira, were going into pockets of individuals. But we are on the path to redemption. Wherever Nigeria goes is worth repeating. That's where Africa goes. 1 out of every 4 black men is a Nigerian. And by 2050, Nigeria will be the 3rd most populous nation on earth. We are going to surpass the United States. 1 out of every 3 Nigerians, out of every 3 Africans will be a Nigerian. We have to make this country work. We have to move beyond politics. We are now in the phase of governance. Sadly, some of our countrymen are still in the political mode. They are the practitioners of violence, advocating that they are Nigeria, our own country, our one and only Nigeria, should go the Venezuela way. Some are agitating that we should go the Lebanon way. But Nigeria is greater than any one of us here. Nigeria will weather the storm. First month, after coming on board, our revenue for sharing in PAC was 1.9 trillion naira. In order not to overheat the polity, the economy, we had to warehouse 1 trillion and share 900 billion. We are not altogether in a very terrible bad shape. Yes, there's the apex challenge, which all hands are on deck to see that we weather the storm. As I said, we know the consequences of unveiling the masquerade. forces are hell-bent on plunging this country into a state of anarchy. Those that could not get into power through the ballot box. Instead for them to wait till 2027, they are so desperate. If this country can fall apart as far as they are concerned, so be it. But we are going to resist them. Just 3 nights ago, 43 trucks of maize, 45, not even 43, were caught being transported to a neighboring country. Just in that Ilela axis, there are 32 illegal smuggling routes. And the moment those foodstuffs were intercepted, the price of maize fell by 10,000 naira. It came down from 60,000 to 50,000. And the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security is here. So there are forces that are hell-bent on undermining our nation. But this is the time for us to coalesce into a single force. Rally around our president, rally around our government, rally around each other. We have the resources, we have the intellect, we have the capacity to turn the corner. And Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking to you not as the Vice President, I am talking to you as a fellow Nigerian. I am assuring you that we have crossed the Rubicon. We are on a path to improved economic performance. But let's unite. What binds us together supersedes whatever that divides us. Politics comes and goes. The highest any president can stay in office is 8 years. Whether we like it or not, we spend more years of our lives outside power than in power. I was alluding to the fact that 4 years ago I was out of power, and anytime I get a call from Mr. Tony Elumelu, it used to lift my spirit. And very soon, whether I like it or not, the changing fortunes of time will make me to step aside. So are we going to destroy this country? What are we bequeathing to future generations? It's very important that let's look at the larger picture. Let us look at the interests of our nation, which supersedes any other individual political interest. I have only one passport. I have only the Nigerian passport. I do not have a Moroccan wife or a house in Dubai. This is where I belong to. And this is where I will die, and this is where I will get bored. At the appropriate time, we are poised. We have the capacity to respond, but we are exercising due restraint. We have the facts at our disposal. And the truth that sets men free, as H.S. Aga said, is often the truth that men prepare not to hear. Years of abuse, years of neglect, years of mismanagement, we are now paying the price. But as my boss is fond of saying, we knew the challenges. It's not for us to apportion blame, but to accept the responsibility of leadership. Theodore Roosevelt, leadership is about taking painful decisions. Leadership goes beyond criticism. As Theodore Roosevelt said, I leave you with that quote. He said, it is not the critics who counts. It is not the man who points where the strong man stumbles or where the doer of this should have done better, could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, but who valiantly strikes. Who else? Who falls short again and again? But he strives on, and his place is not with those cold and timid souls who know no victory, no defeat. We are poised to change this nation, and we are going to reach the promised land. Come and join us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much. The Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Please, we'll ask the front row seats. Please kindly come to the stage for a group photograph with His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Thank you very much. Please, our program still continues, even as, please, our program still continues. Please, you may be kindly seated as the Vice President exits so that we can continue with our program. Thank you. Our program will continue in just a few moments. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for coming. The Country Director and Group Chief Executive Officer of Transcorp, thank you very much, ma'am, for being in the room. And the Managing Director of the hotel, whom we are currently hosting this event, Mrs. Dupe Olushola, thank you very much for also gracing us with your presence. Ms. Adenike Laoye, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Finance, thank you very much. Ms. Oluvenje, who is the Special Advisor to the President on Energy, is also in the room. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being here. Mr. Laddie Smith, partner SIO, is also in the room. Please, thank you very much. I thought I would be hearing a round of applause, for all special personalities here in our midst. Please, can we make it louder? Can we make it louder? Mr. Taiwo Yedele, Chairman, Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, is also here. The DG of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, is also here. Dr. Patience Chiakboji, Chairperson, Board Shelter Africa, is also here. As we go by, we will continue with the introductions. I also see the MD CEO of NDPHC, Mr. Chiedu. Thank you very much for coming. All right, as we move to the next item on the agenda, and the next item will be focusing on public wealth management as a tool to move from potential to prosperity. We all know in the room that we have said many times, millions of times, that Nigeria is a country of potential. Nigeria is a country of potential. And this conference today has been put together to be able to move us from potential to prosperity. Okay. How do we move from potential to prosperity? How do we indeed create wealth from our public assets that has been lying fallow? So many things that have been said in the course of 2 hours, 30 minutes since we've started this conference. A lot of key words for me: execution, execution, execution. Political will. The Vice President just left us with a soothing message telling us that His Excellency, Mr. President, has all our interests at heart, understands the pain. He was speaking to us here, His Excellency the Vice President, as a fellow Nigerian. So I know that my community here, the media, would actually also take that away, that the President has told us, let's just tarry a while. Let's tarry a while. After darkness comes light. After the night comes the dawn. That is one of the things that has made us gather here today. How do we secure tomorrow's wealth today? By integrating all the potentials that we have here in Nigeria. A lot of us may not know, just like Mr. Tony Elumelu, CFR, had said, since 1959, MOFI. But of course, we've seen the restructuring at least in the last 1 year or two. So what is being expected from MOFI for the next 10 years? And earlier on when I was speaking, I talked about the cumulative assets under management of MOFI now being at 18 trillion naira, hoping to get it to 100 trillion naira in within the next 9 years. How are they going to do it? And that is why we are all gathered here in the room. So we'll be hearing very shortly on the topic public wealth management as a tool to move from potential to prosperity, from a man that has the experience, an investment banker, all the experience you think of. We'll be hearing from him in a bit, but I would appreciate if those of us outside, if you can hear my voice, please can you come into the room so that we can go ahead with our program. Please, can we kindly leave the board chair? Okay. As we move on to the next item on the agenda, I mentioned earlier that this next item will be dwelling on public wealth management as a tool to move from potential to prosperity. Our next speaker would show us clearly how to do that. Our next speaker was a major contributor to making Nigeria the premier destination for investments in Africa. I remember very vividly in 2011 when I interviewed him as the Minister of Finance. And I know you will remember, sir. And why I'm bringing back this, when I interviewed him in 2011 as the Minister of Finance, Nigeria's GDP growth was at 7%. And I remember clearly that one of the questions I asked him while he was seated close to me in the studio was that we have a 7% GDP growth that is jobless, a jobless growth. 2011 to 2024, how many years down the line? How that downward trajectory has been. And as an economy, we're struggling with a 3% growth and a population rate growth of about 2.6%. So you're having roughly about 0.4% if you really take away your GDP growth from your population growth. Why am I saying this? For this longer time, how did we come down this way? But there's a way out, and that is what MOFI is also doing today. Our next speaker will speak to us about public wealth. As he was responsible for many transformational milestones in Nigeria, including establishing the country's sovereign wealth fund. I thought we will hear a round of applause for that. Issuing the nation's first Eurobond, structuring and sourcing the finance for the first standard gauge rail in Nigeria, and developing the country's industrial revolution plan. Currently, our next speaker is an advisor to companies and governments in the US, UK, and Nigeria. He's the founder of the Nigeria Leadership Initiative, a board member of TechnoServe in the US, and a member of the Investor Advisory Council of Time Partners in the UK. In July of 2023, he launched his book titled Reclaiming the Jewel of Africa. How do we do that? Please, with a round of applause, let's welcome our distinguished guest speaker, former Minister of Finance, former Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Olusegun Aganga, CON.
Good to see Nancy again. It's been a very long time since I saw you. I will stand on existing protocol, but I will recognize the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was represented here today by the Vice President of the country. I will also recognize the Governor of Cross River State, who is still seated here. I know some have gone already, and members of the National Assembly that are still here with us today. And of course, my host, the Chairman, Shamsuddin Usman, and the CEO of MOFI. Thank you very much for asking me to speak at your inaugural Private Wealth Management Conference. In my book, which Nancy referred to, Reclaiming the Jewel of Africa, which President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa described as a blueprint for taking Nigeria and Africa from potential to prosperity, I identified and discussed the areas we must focus on urgently to achieve that goal of moving from potential to prosperity, which is the part of the summary of this program. And the areas identified in that book include that we must change our leadership, governance, and political structure as a country, including significantly cutting down on the level of governance, on the cost of governance. We must build strong social, economic, and political institutions because nations fail when institutions are weak. Research has shown that. We must build a very strong civil service because civil service is the backbone of any government. We must focus on the economy. The economy is the #1 priority of any president. And that means that we must have a bigger industrialized economy with well-diversified sources of revenues. We must produce what we consume, and we must consume what we produce. You heard the Vice President talk about attracting investment. We must attract investments into the country. But I tell you, having been the former Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, it starts with having a very strong and stable macroeconomic environment. And in that regard, I want to make one quick point. And the quick point is that the CBN has a lot of tools to manage foreign exchange and inflation. But in developing countries, you cannot leave the management of your inflation, foreign exchange to the CBN alone. Other economic ministries have a major role to play. Go and look at the drivers of inflation today. An exchange rate. Look at the analysis of the National Bureau of Statistics. You will understand what I mean, that other ministries have to do their job for CBN's tools to be effective. It will not be effective if they don't do their job. And that is one of the missing points we have in the country. We must invest heavily in our people. Our people are number one asset of the nation. And of course, we must comprehensively address what I call the triple threat. The triple threat is poverty, unemployment, and insecurity. And focus not only on dealing with the symptoms, we must deal with the causes. We must comprehensively deal with corruption and the causes of corruption as we work to block all leakages and eliminate waste. We must manage our resources. We must manage our assets better. That is where an effective public wealth management strategy comes in, and that is why I am so delighted to be speaking at this conference. I'm glad I had the Vice President speak, I had the Minister of Finance, CME, speak. I'm delighted to hear that some of these things have been acted upon, but we need to do more. These are the areas we must concentrate on if we want to move from potential to prosperity. Public wealth management involves the strategic management of government's assets, including financial investments, natural resources, and other valuable holdings. This practice aims to optimize the use of public resources to generate sustainable returns and contribute to economic prosperity. Of course, nations employ different strategies and different structures to manage their assets. Some are set up as sovereign wealth funds, others are set up as strategic investment vehicles. And the approach adopted by developing countries is very, very different from the approach adopted by developed economies. You've heard everybody talk about technocracy, but we've seen far much more than that. Effective public wealth management contributes to a country's economic prosperity in several ways. And these include economic diversification, attracting investment into the economy, generation of sustainable revenues, provision of risk capital, financial stability, infrastructure investment, debt reduction, and job creation, amongst others. Revenues generated from well-managed public assets can be invested in human capital development programs, our number one asset, such as education, healthcare, poverty alleviation, contributing to societal well-being. These are the contributions a fully supported and restructured MOFI can, and we hope will deliver to the country. Several countries, including Malaysia, UAE, the MD talked about some of these countries, Qatar, South Africa, South Africa has some SIVs, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, which everyone has talked about earlier on this morning, to mention a few, have all used strategic investment vehicles or sovereign wealth funds to transform and diversify the economies. In Malaysia, for example, Khazanah Fund is the SIV. or sovereign wealth fund of that government. And its commercial objective is to grow financial assets and diversify revenue sources for Malaysia. In the first 10 years from the time they began operations in 1994, Khazanah managed the government's commercial assets, as well as invested in strategic economic diversification projects like economic zones, free trade zones, industrial parks, and local industries, infrastructure, and high technology sectors, healthcare, and airlines. It was only in 2004 that it was allowed to seek opportunities in new economic sectors and geographies.